The ballroom shimmered with glass chandeliers and the faint hum of laughter. Waiters floated between tables, balancing silver trays of champagne and appetizers that looked too perfect to touch. It was the annual Harrington Tech Gala, an evening of power, money, and carefully practiced smiles. But in the far corner of that golden hall sat two little girls, twin sisters, dressed in matching pale blue dresses with silver bows. They were beautiful, wide-eyed, curious, and still. The kind of stillness that made you notice what others were too busy to see. They didn't talk. They didn't laugh. They just watched, quietly, as the crowd swirled around them like they didn't exist. The older guests whispered softly, "Those are the CEO's daughters, right?" Poor girls, both deaf. But after a moment of polite pity, they turned away, back to their conversations about profits and partnerships. No one noticed how the twins' fingers moved, subtle, graceful, like butterflies in midair, a secret language that no one in that ballroom seemed to understand. And that's when he walked in. Daniel Carter wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't wearing a designer suit. His tie was a little crooked, his shoes scuffed from long hours. He wasn't one of the sponsors or investors. He was there because the catering company had hired him as extra, staff, a single dad who took every shift he could to keep things together for his daughter back home. He was carrying a tray of glasses when he saw them, the twins, sitting silently at a table too big for them. Everyone was too busy pretending not to stare. Daniel paused. Something tugged inside him. That kind of ache only a parent knows. He saw in their eyes what he'd seen too many times in his daughters, that quiet loneliness that no one wants to talk about. He glanced toward the stage, where their father, Ethan Harrington, the CEO, was giving a speech about innovation, leadership, and the future of connection. The irony almost made Daniel smile. The future of connection. And yet his daughters sat alone, disconnected from the world around them. When the applause erupted, Daniel set down his tray. His heart said move, his mind said don't. But hearts don't wait for logic. He took a breath and walked toward the girls. The crowd didn't notice. But the twins did. Their eyes followed him, cautious, curious. He knelt down to their level slowly so he wouldn't scare them. And then, with gentle hands, he signed one word, "Hello." Both girls froze, as if the soundless air had just spoken. Then their faces lit up, that rare kind of light that only comes when someone finally sees you. They signed back, quick, excited, their hands moving too fast for him to keep up. He laughed softly, his fingers answering with the words he did remember. "I know a little." "My daughter, she's learning too." The twins smiled wider. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was alive. For the first time that night, someone was talking to them. Across the room, a few guests turned their heads, confused. And on the stage, Ethan Harrington paused mid-sentence as he caught sight of a man in a waiter's uniform kneeling beside his daughters, making them laugh without a single sound. The applause faded. But something else began, something that would change all of their lives forever. The applause slowly faded, but the sound that replaced it was even louder. Silence filled with judgment. Eyes turned. Conversation stilled. A man in a catering uniform was crouched beside the CEO's daughters, laughing, no, signing, as if the world around them had disappeared. Ethan Harrington, from the stage, froze. His perfectly rehearsed speech about human connection through technology fell flat on his tongue. For a second, he just stared. Confusion twisted into something sharper, irritation, maybe even embarrassment. He cleared his throat, forced a smile for the audience, and ended his speech with mechanical applause. Then, without another word, he stepped down from the stage. Daniel didn't notice him coming. He was too focused on the girls, the way their small hands moved so fast, the giggles that didn't make sound but filled the air with joy anyway. He hadn't seen joy like that in years, not since before his wife left, before he'd become both mom and dad, worker and dreamer. "Excuse me?" The voice behind him was deep, clipped, and controlled. Daniel turned and looked up, straight into the sharp blue eyes of Ethan Harrington. For a moment, the difference between them couldn't have been clearer. One in a $1,000 suit, the other in a uniform with a name tag that had started to fade. Ethan didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence alone felt like a storm waiting to break. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" he asked, his voice soft but cold. Daniel stood slowly. "I just said hello," he replied. Ethan's gaze shifted to his daughters. "They're fine." "You don't need to." But before he could finish, one of the twins tugged on his sleeve and signed something rapidly, her eyes wide with pleading. Ethan froze. He didn't understand a single word. The irony stung even him. His own daughters, speaking a language he didn't know. Daniel noticed the moment, and for a heartbeat, something in his chest softened. "She's saying she wants to show you something," Daniel said gently. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You know sign language?" "A little," Daniel admitted. "My daughter was born hard of hearing. I'm still learning." The twins giggled again, signing to each other, excited. Daniel translated quietly. "They're saying you never try to talk to them this way." A few nearby guests pretended not to listen, but their curious glances said otherwise. Ethan's voice dropped. "This isn't appropriate. Your staff, not human?" Daniel cut in before he could stop himself. His voice wasn't loud, but the words landed heavy. "Sir, I wasn't trying to disrespect you. I just saw two kids sitting alone, and thought maybe they could use a friend." Silence. Even the twins looked between them, sensing the weight in the air. Ethan exhaled, slow, frustrated, but not angry this time. More lost. "You have no idea how complicated it is," he murmured. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Maybe not. But I know what it's like when your kid looks at you like you're a stranger." Ethan's eyes flickered, caught off guard by the truth in his tone. Just then, a woman from the PR team rushed over, whispering something to Ethan about optics and media presence. Cameras had started turning their way. Ethan adjusted his tie, trying to regain control. "We'll talk later," he said, his voice quieter now. He looked at his daughters, still signing frantically toward him, trying to pull his attention back. He hesitated. And for the first time that night, he didn't walk away immediately. Daniel gave a polite nod, stepped back, and returned to his tray. But something inside him had shifted. He wasn't sure what he had started, only that those two little girls didn't feel invisible anymore. As he turned toward the service hallway, he glanced back one last time and caught the twins watching him with glowing smiles, signing a word he knew too well. "Thank you," he smiled back, signing quietly. Any time. What Daniel didn't know was that Ethan had watched that too. And the next morning, a call would come that would change everything. Morning sunlight slipped through thin curtains and landed across Daniel's small kitchen table, cluttered with crayons, cereal boxes, and unpaid bills. He moved around quietly, pouring milk, humming to the tune his daughter loved. "Daddy, can I take my drawing to school?" "Of course, sweetheart." He smiled, helping her tuck the paper carefully into her little backpack. Her name was Lily, 6 years old. A heart full of light and hands that spoke a language louder than sound. As Daniel brushed her hair, he thought about the two girls from the night before, the CEO's daughters. Their smiles, their laughter, how they came alive with just one sign, one word. "Hello." He didn't think much of it then. He figured that moment was gone, swallowed by the night and the glittering world he didn't belong to, until his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something in him pressed, "Answer, Mr. Carter." The voice was smooth, formal. "This is Amanda Lewis. I'm Mr. Harrington's executive assistant." Daniel blinked. Yes, that's me. Mr. Harrington would like to meet with you. Privately. Today, if possible." He froze. "Did I do something wrong?" Amanda's tone softened. "No, sir. Quite the opposite, I believe." A few hours later, Daniel found himself standing outside Harrington Tower, 35 stories of glass and steel reaching into the clouds. He felt small, carrying nothing but his worn-out bag and a nervous heart. The receptionist recognized him instantly. "Mr. Carter? Mr. Harrington is expecting you." Expecting him. That still didn't sound real. The elevator doors opened into an office that looked more like a museum. Glass walls, framed awards, and a view that made the city look tiny. Ethan Harrington stood by the window, his hands in his pockets, looking out over the skyline like a man who had everything and still couldn't find what he was looking for. He turned when Daniel entered. "Mr. Carter, thanks for coming." Daniel nodded politely. "I wasn't sure if I should—" "Honestly, I thought you'd fire me after last night." Ethan almost smiled. "I considered it." Daniel raised an eyebrow, unsure if he was serious. "But," Ethan continued, walking over, "my daughters haven't stopped talking about you. Or, well, signing about you. They told me you were the first person who ever spoke to them like they mattered." The words hit Daniel like a quiet thunder. "I didn't do anything special," he said softly. "I just said hello." Ethan nodded, a shadow crossing his face. "That's more than most people ever have." For a long moment, neither man spoke. The city buzzed below, distant and cold. Then Ethan said something Daniel didn't expect. "I'd like to hire you." Daniel blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Not as staff, not as catering," Ethan said quickly. "As a communication consultant. To help my daughters and me learn sign language properly." Daniel stared at him. "You want me to teach you?" Ethan's lips curved faintly. "They trust you. That's something I haven't been able to earn lately. If you'll accept, I'd like you to start immediately." Daniel hesitated. He thought about the bills, the extra shifts, the nights he came home too tired to smile. But mostly he thought about Lily, and how proud she'd be to see her dad doing something that mattered. Finally, he nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Ethan reached out his hand. Then it settled. As they shook, Daniel noticed something, a glimmer behind the CEO's composed expression. Regret, maybe, or hope, buried deep under the armor of a man who'd forgotten how to feel. Before leaving, Daniel asked softly, "Can I ask you something, Mr. Harrington?" "Of course." "When's the last time you actually sat with your daughters?" "No business, no phones, just them." Ethan didn't answer. He just looked away toward the skyline, and for once, the man who had built an empire looked small. As Daniel left the office, the elevator doors closing behind him, he couldn't shake the thought that maybe this wasn't just about helping two little girls. Maybe it was about helping a father find his way back to them. The first lesson wasn't in a classroom. It was in the sunlit corner of Ethan Harrington's penthouse, a home that looked perfect, yet somehow felt lonely. The twins, Emma and Ellie, sat cross-legged on the rug surrounded by picture cards, alphabet charts, and a few scattered cookies Daniel had brought to break the ice. They were giggling again, not loudly but in that soft, contagious way that made everything else fade away. Daniel sat with them, showing a simple sign, family. The girls repeated it, fingers curved just right, eyes sparkling. Then they pointed at him and signed again, their smiles teasing. "Family?" He chuckled. "Not yet," he said softly, signing the words as best he could. "Maybe friends first." Ethan stood at the edge of the room, arms folded, watching, not sure where to fit in. Daniel noticed. "Mr. Harrington, come here. You should try this one." Ethan hesitated. "I don't want to slow you down." "You won't," Daniel said. "Trust me, they'll wait for you." So Ethan stepped closer, awkwardly kneeling beside his daughters. They looked up at him, surprised, and then one of them reached for his hand, gently guiding his fingers into place. Family. The sign was clumsy, but the moment was pure. For the first time, Ethan saw his daughters' faces light up, not because of gifts, not because of promises, but because he tried. That was all they had wanted. Hours passed. Lessons turned into laughter, lessons into stories. Daniel taught them how to sign small things. Love, together, strong. The twins taught him new ones in return, their tiny hands correcting his clumsy movements with patient smiles. Every few minutes, Ethan would catch himself smiling too, Not the kind of smile you practice for photographs, but one that felt strange and real. When Daniel packed up to leave, Ellie tugged on his sleeve and signed something fast. He looked to Ethan. She said, "Thank you for giving us our dad back." Ethan's throat tightened. He turned away, blinking quickly, pretending to check his phone. After Daniel left, the apartment felt different. Quieter, but in a good way. Ethan sat alone at the table, staring at his hands. He tried again, slowly shaping the sign for family. He smiled, just a little. The lessons continued over the next few weeks. Every evening, Daniel arrived after his shift. His tie loosened, a tired smile on his face. And every time those two girls ran to the door, hands already signing before words could be said. He taught them stories in sign language, fairy tales and bedtime wishes. He taught Ethan how to say, "I'm proud of you" and "I love you." The first time he did, the girls froze, stunned, and then wrapped their arms around him so tightly he couldn't breathe. That night, Ethan walked Daniel to the door. "You've done more for them in 2 weeks than I have in 2 years, he said quietly. Daniel smiled. "You were always there, sir. You just didn't know how to reach them." Ethan nodded slowly, the words sinking in. Then, after a pause, he asked, "You mentioned you have a daughter?" "Yeah, Lily, she's 6. Deaf too?" Daniel smiled softly, hard of hearing. "She hears some things, but signs better than I do. Smart little thing. She teaches me more than I teach her." Ethan looked thoughtful. "Would you bring her next time? Maybe my girls could meet her?" Daniel hesitated. "You sure?" "Absolutely," Ethan said. "They've never had a friend who understands them like that." Daniel's heart warmed. "All right then. Next lesson, we'll make it a play date." And as the elevator doors closed behind him, Ethan stood in the quiet hallway, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not success, not control, but peace. The next Saturday morning, the penthouse didn't feel like a museum anymore. There were crayons on the table, toy blocks scattered across the floor, and the faint hum of laughter. Laughter that didn't need sound to be felt. Daniel stood by the door, holding Lily's hand as they stepped inside. She clung to him shyly, her small eyes scanning the massive room in wonder. "Hey, sweetheart," he whispered, bending down. "Remember what I said? Just be you. They'll love you." Lily nodded, and when Emma and Ellie spotted her from across the room, they ran over, their hands flying in excitement. "Hello," they signed. "Hi." Lily signed back, her movements quick but confident. The moment their hands began moving, it was like watching 3 little lights ignite all at once. They didn't need introductions. They didn't need words. They just understood. Daniel watched them from a distance, his heart swelling as Lily showed them her favorite signs for cookie, rainbow, and friend. The twins laughed, mimicking her movements. Turning mistakes into giggles, Ethan stepped beside Daniel, hands in his pockets. "They're really talking, aren't they?" Daniel nodded, smiling. "Better than most adults I know." For a long moment, the two men just stood there, watching their daughters connect in a world of gestures and joy, a language built on patience, not noise. Ethan exhaled slowly. "I used to think silence meant sadness," he said quietly. "But looking at them now, it feels peaceful." Daniel nodded. "Silence only hurts when no one's listening. Once someone learns to listen differently, it becomes beautiful." Ethan's eyes softened, the kind of softness that comes from realizing how much you've missed. He glanced at Daniel. "You're a good father," Daniel chuckled. "I'm just trying. Some days I get it right. Most days, I just show up and hope love does the rest." Ethan smiled faintly. That might be the best way to parent. Across the room, Lily tugged on Daniel's sleeve, signing quickly. "Can we bake cookies for them?" Daniel grinned. "She wants to bake," he translated. Ethan laughed softly, the first real laugh Daniel had heard from him. "The kitchen's yours." God knows it hasn't seen real use in years. Soon, the apartment filled with the sweet smell of sugar and vanilla. The girls took turns stirring the batter, signing wildly to each other. Flour ended up on their faces, their clothes, even on Daniel's cheek, and when Ethan tried to help, the twins ganged up on him, covering his tie in flour, too. For a moment, he didn't care. For a moment, the billionaire CEO wasn't thinking about stocks or meetings, just about the way his daughters laughed when he let go of perfection. When the cookies came out of the oven, the four of them sat together at the marble counter, not as students and teacher, not as rich and poor, not even as strangers anymore, just people who had learned to speak the language of care. Emma signed something slowly, carefully forming each movement. Daniel smiled and translated softly. She said, "This feels like family." The room went still. Ethan looked at his daughters, at Daniel, at Lily, and for the first time in years, he felt tears threaten to rise. But they weren't sad tears. They were the kind that come when a man realizes he's finally home. Not in a place, but in a feeling. He reached across the counter, touching Emma's hand gently, then Ellie's. "Family," he signed. Awkward but proud, the girls giggled and repeated it back. Lily joined in. And Daniel watched with quiet awe, his heart whispering the same word. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him sleepily and signed, "Daddy." Mr. Ethan looked lonely before. "Not anymore," Daniel smiled, brushing her hair back. "You think so?" She nodded. "Because now he has friends." And in that moment, Daniel realized this wasn't just about teaching sign language anymore. It was about teaching hearts how to listen. Months had passed since that night at the gala, the night Daniel Carter had simply said hello. What began as a moment of kindness had turned into something no one could have planned. A friendship that rebuilt a father, healed two little hearts, and made one man remember what love really meant. The penthouse looked different now. The glass walls still shone, but the air was warmer. There were toys in the corner, drawings on the fridge, and a small whiteboard filled with signs and scribbles. Laughter had become a daily guest. Daniel still came every week. But he didn't come as an employee anymore. He came as family. Lily and the twins were inseparable now. 3 hands, 1 language, endless laughter. Ethan often found them curled up together watching silent cartoons with subtitles, giggling like old friends. He would stand at the door sometimes, watching quietly, his heart full, still not believing how much had changed since the night he first saw Daniel kneeling beside his daughters. That morning, Ethan called Daniel and asked him to bring Lily for something special. When they arrived, the twins ran out to greet them, dressed in matching pink dresses, excitement glowing on their faces. "Big surprise today," Ethan said with a smile. "Come on, you'll see." He led them into the main hall of the company, the same place where Daniel had once walked with a tray, invisible among powerful people. But today, the space looked different. Banners hung from the ceiling, covered in drawings made by the twins. In the center was a plaque, unveiled with golden ribbons. Daniel squinted, stepping closer, and his breath caught. Engraved in soft silver were the words, "The Carter Communication Center, dedicated to every child who deserves to be heard." He blinked, stunned. What is this?" Ethan smiled, eyes glistening. "A new department. A space in our company about and soon across the city us to teach sign language to families, schools, and workplaces. To make sure no child grows up unheard. It's because of you, Daniel. Because you showed me that connection doesn't start with sound. It starts with heart." Daniel's throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You already said it, the day you signed hello." Behind them, the twins and Lily were already running around, touching the walls, their hands flying in the air with joy. They didn't need words to celebrate. Their laughter said it all. Daniel turned to look at Ethan. "You changed their lives." Ethan shook his head softly. "No, you reminded me how to be their father." For a moment, neither man spoke. Just the sound of the children signing and laughing, sunlight spilling across the floor. Then Lily tugged Daniel's sleeve and signed, "Can we show him our song?" Daniel smiled. "Go ahead." The 3 little girls stood together. hands raised, and began to sign in perfect rhythm, their movements slow and graceful, telling a story Daniel had taught them, a song about family, hope, and love. As they finished, Ethan clapped, not out of habit, but out of pride. His eyes were wet. He turned to Daniel and whispered, "You gave us back our voices," Daniel smiled, signing quietly. "You were listening all along." The room fell into a peaceful silence, the kind that didn't hurt anymore. The kind that meant understanding. Outside, the city moved on, loud, restless, unknowing. But in that one room, surrounded by laughter, love, and hands that spoke louder than any words, something sacred had been found, a family. Not by blood, but by heart. One word, one sign, one act of kindness can change more than lives. It can change hearts.